So every shot that you just saw was filmed on a lens that I just picked up for only $145. And I think it might be the most underrated full frame lens that Sony makes. So I've always been on the lookout for the best possible setup for travel creators or content creators who just kind of want to go out and film casually and don't want to lug around huge cinematic rig setups. I made a video a couple weeks ago talking about my perfect sort of small creator travel friendly kit. But after that video, I wanted to do a little bit more research on what different lenses I possibly could use. For that video, I talked about the 24mm f2.8 prime lens, which is a great prime lens. It's only about 162 grams. So it's a really small, light, compact lens. And in my research since then, I've come across this lens. This is a kit lens that a lot of people know about. They overlook, they don't give it a lot of love, but I think it might be a real hidden gem. All right, so this is the Sony 28-60 f4 to 5.6 lens. This lens might look a little familiar to you. That's probably because it's sold primarily as a kit lens. It's often sold with the A7C or A7C2. And this lens, for what it is I think it's one of the most underrated lenses you could possibly buy in the market right now. Now to go over this lens real quickly, as you could tell, it's a Sony full frame 28mm to 60mm retractable zoom lens. Now, when you look at the lens right now, it looks really small and it actually starts at this dot right here. That's because you have to open it up to 28mm first off the bat to actually start out the lens and actually be able to record. So while you're traveling, you can keep it really small and compact, but when you actually film, you open it up to 28, and then you have a smooth zoom up to 60mm. And this is actually really incredible because you get basically, 5 different focal lengths or everything in between, 28, 35, 40, 50, 60. The zoom allows you to capture that full range. And when you start out at 28mm, you get that nice f4 aperture, but then as you zoom out to 60mm, it actually drops down to 5.6. Now this feature might seem like a deal breaker, but it actually isn't that big of a deal in my opinion. I'm gonna go over exactly why in this video. And I'm gonna talk about why I think this lens, if you want the cheapest, kind of best full frame zoom lens on the market for travel and just day-to-day use, I think this lens might be one to look at. Now I'm gonna talk about price point, but before that, I wanna talk about why I primarily bought this lens, and that's the form factor. This lens, as you could tell, is really small. In a previous video, really recently, I talked about my perfect kind of travel kit, and I did a bit of research after that video and found this kit lens, and I've seen a bunch of reviews on it, and it's really overall pretty negative. It's don't buy this lens. This lens is not good because of its variable aperture, but I've tested this lens out after I purchased it, and honestly, it performs incredible. Now, just to give you an idea of the size and form factor, first and foremost, this lens right here is a lens I talked about previously, and this is the 24mm f2.8 prime lens. As you can see side by side, these lenses are almost identical in size. They're basically pretty much the same lens, but as you can see, you can adjust the aperture. It's got an aperture ring on the lens itself here for the prime, whereas the zoom, you actually have to do it in camera. I don't think that's as big of a deal as it might seem. The weight of both of these lenses is where it's pretty crazy. The 24mm is 162 grams, and the 28-60 is 167 grams. It's basically identical across these two lenses. Now for a prime, this lens, as I said before, is great, but the ability to have basically 28 all the way to 60 in one lens at the same weight as the 24mm prime is honestly, I think it's unmatched. It's pretty incredible. I'm pairing this 28-60 on the Sony ZV-E1. See the previous video I did a couple weeks ago on the actual kit to talk a little bit more about this body, but this lens and this camera combination, or this lens, for instance, with the FX3, the dual native ISO is the biggest reason why I think the f4 to 5.6 isn't that big of a deal, especially for like travel and content creators. When you're not really shooting wide open at f1.4, you need that sort of aperture primarily. Let me pop this on for you just to see the size. So this is the lens on camera, and as you can see, the form factor of this is ridiculous. When it's time to film, you actually got to pop this up open again, as I said, and once you pop it open, obviously there's a bit of a zoom here and a bit of a retraction, and once you pop it open, this lens comes from its retracted state out. I don't think this is as big of an issue when you're filming. The key thing is that when you're done filming, you can go ahead and close this off, retract it, and put it inside a bag, and it's technically pocketable inside like a jacket pocket. I put this in a side bag, the Porter Compart bag I talked about previously, and this, honestly, this combination, it's such a small pocketable, basically, camera that I think for travel videography and travel creation, not just travel, but just day-to-day use, going out, the amount of times that you want to go out and grab your camera and reach for it increases the likelihood of you actually using your camera and getting more content, getting more quality footage. And I think this honestly has just made the overall process so much more fun and so much more enjoyable. As you're out filming with your compact kit, there's a couple different tricks and a new tool that'll help take your footage and your projects to the next level. So sometimes when you're out filming a video, and in this case, I was filming a video about this 28-60 lens, you forget to film a certain shot. And in this case, I didn't actually film a lens shot or a product shot in the field because I was using the 28-60 on my camera the whole time. Let me show you a quick trick that can fix that. Higgsfield just released Cinema Studio 3.5, and today I'm gonna show you how to generate a really simple static product video. So all I did was take a reference frame from a video I actually captured in the forest, and then I took a quick snap of the lens here on my desk, and I used those two images with a reference prompt to generate a simple head-on image. In Cinema Studio 3.5, you can select the lens focal length, the depth of field. You can get really into the nitty-gritty of how the image ends up looking. And once you've got that fine-tuned, you can then go ahead and animate it. And for this video, I just wanted a static, sort of handheld, really natural video, just so that I'd have it as a nice B-roll to add in later in this video if I wanted to talk about the specific features of this lens. Once you've got your video, you can go ahead and then color grade it and match it to the rest of your clips, and it overall feels really natural, not out of place. Cinema Studio 3.5 is much more powerful than that, but I just wanted to show you one use case scenario that could be really helpful for solo creators. If you're interested in trying out Higgsfield, make sure to click the link down in the description below. And thanks again, Higgsfield, for sponsoring today's video. Before I talk about price, let me talk about the elephant in the room. And the reason why this lens is so cheap and it's called a kit lens is because it doesn't have the f1.4 or f2.8 or super low aperture that allows you versatility while in the field. However, I'm actually at the point where most of the footage that I film, even when I have sort of my sharp primes, is typically I'm shooting at like f5.6, f8, f11 anyways. And so the thought process was that I don't need that low aperture anyways. So I'm not really sacrificing anything by having this variable aperture on the Sony ZV-E1 in particular. The reason I can get away with the 5.6 and f4 variable aperture is because the ZV-E1 has a dual base ISO. So basically you can film either at the lowest ISO, which is 640-800 depending on your color profile, but the highest base, second base ISO is 12,800. That means when you're set on 12,800 ISO, you can go ahead and crank up your aperture to like f11 or put on an ND filter and still get really, really low noise, really high quality footage that doesn't seem like it's shot on such a high ISO, and allows you to go ahead and film in low light conditions. And that kind of solves the issue of this, variable aperture where you don't necessarily need to go down to f1.4 to film in low light conditions, because you can just go ahead and pop on the second base ISO and still get really, really high quality footage on this combination. So basically the variable aperture I feel like would kill this lens on a lot of other systems, but on the ZV-E1 and the FX3, obviously if you want to use that really saves this lens, and it really gives this lens a second life and a second use case situation where you can use this in low light situations as well, not just really high bright contrast situations. And I think that really increases the versatility of this lens. Now when you're outside filming and traveling, the ability to shoot in either 28, 35, 40, 50, or 60 or anything in between gives you a lot more versatility in the frames you can film, and this just allows you to tell your story much better. If you wanted to film on just a 24mm prime, that's all you need, then again, I would highly recommend this lens that I talked about previously, the 24mm f2.8. But when you're outside and you're in new conditions or new scenarios or different areas, or you're traveling, or you just want a variety of different focal lengths, this, as a creator, I think this checks all the boxes. It really is a great amount of versatility in such a tiny, tiny form factor. Every time I pick up this camera, I'm just wowed at how light this setup is. All right, so now let's talk about price, because I think price is honestly the biggest thing and the biggest reason why you should look at this lens in particular. I love getting used glass. That's what I highly recommend for people who want to save money on lenses, buy them used. And I got this for $145 US. In comparison, I bought the 24mm f2.8 lens, again, used on Amazon Marketplace for $400. So almost 2.5 times the price of this lens, I got this prime lens. And it's honestly shocking at how cheap you can get this lens. I think brand new, they go for around $500 USD, but because there's so many lenses and so many people are trying to get rid of this lens in particular, the price of this lens on the used marketplace in particular is, honestly, it's kind of shocking how cheap this lens is. And as you're seeing the example footage in this video, I think you can tell for yourself that the sharpness, the quality, the overall look of this lens is really great. And once you go ahead and color grade your footage, add different things. If you want to, like, you know, bring down the sharpness or bring down and add grain and whatnot, which is something that's very popular now, I think you're gonna get away. No one's really gonna be able to tell this was shot on a $145 piece of glass. You really won't be able to tell the difference between this or, let's say, like, I think if you talk about maybe bokeh, and if you're really nitpicky about different flaring, then perhaps you could tell that this was shot on a bit lower quality glass on the G Master, for example. But overall, I don't think anybody's gonna be able to tell your footage was shot on such a cheap kit lens. Now, to pair this lens with a few different accessories, obviously, if you take a look at this lens, you can tell it's a 40.5 filter thread, which is kind of weird. It's such a tiny filter thread. For comparison, the 24-28 is a 49. So I've actually just used the same variable ND that I'm using on the 24 on this lens, and it is the Nisi, I forgot what this is called. It's like the 1.5 stop something. I think it's called the Nisi True Color or whatever. This is just a very high quality variable ND 1-to-5 stop that I've been using on the 24. I've actually just gone ahead and gotten a single step up ring. This is a 40.5 to 49. So I just pop on the single step up ring, like so, and then I just pop it on to my lens like this. And it doesn't really add that much bulk. Again, if you really wanted the smallest possible form factor, you wouldn't even need a step-up ring. You could just get the native 40.5 Nisi filter for this and make this even smaller. But even with the step-up ring, this is such a tiny form factor that it doesn't really bother me. And so this is what I've got going on here as my variable ND. And the Nisi's got a nice little filter cap that kind of acts as a lens cap for your camera system. And this is basically all I'm running with here. This, and then obviously I've got my wind little dead cat here on top of my camera. And this is how I'm rocking. This is all I've got. This is everything that I was shot in this video. All the example footage was shot with this entire combination here. And it's honestly ridiculous how good this lens is. Now, to talk about the cons and who shouldn't buy this lens, I don't think you're filming high spec Mercedes-Benz commercials on this lens. Obviously, this is not what this lens is meant for. This lens is meant for creators who want to make casual, maybe cinematic travel content, or they're just out and about. They want to capture a few different frames while they're perhaps grabbing coffee or going out traveling somewhere, or even filming simple reels. I think this lens for creators is honestly a game changer. I mean, you could film really high quality stuff on this lens as well, but I don't think that's what this is meant for, or where this lens shines. If you want to film high quality spec stuff, then you're not worried about the weight, the form factor, those sort of things. But if you want something that's basically pocketable, really tiny form factor, really light, compact setup, then I think this lens, if you're looking for stuff that gets you over the line and stuff that doesn't hurt you as you're carrying it all day in a sling bag or a backpack, man, this is the lens. You can't get better than this. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Sony 28-60 zoom lens, the basic kit lens that a lot of people know about, they purchase, they sell, they don't really want to use, but I think it's a really underrated full frame zoom lens that you could use on travels if you're a content creator, or if you just want something really small, pocketable, that still packs a big punch. I'm planning on taking this lens on a couple trips in the next few weeks and months, so stay tuned for more thoughts on this lens. I'll let you know if my feelings sort of change, but upon initial impressions and what I've actually filmed with it so far, I'm really impressed with the things that come out of this lens, and especially for the price point, I don't think you can do much better. If you enjoy the color grade in these videos, my sound design, any of my presets, they'll be linked all in the description below. It's in my shop. It's a huge help to the channel, and I really appreciate you checking them out. And as always, if you made it to the end of the video, leave me a comment so I know you made it to the very end. Let's do the word compact for this one. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.